For the past month, I've been looking forward to talking today with Dr. George Barna, a professor at Arizona Christian University and the Director of Research at the Cultural Research Center at ACU. He also founded the Barna Group, a research company which he sold in 2009, that for years set the standard for understanding trends in American culture, which I might add influences young people around the world. I am very excited to have you on the program today on the Historical Faith Society. And I actually was really impacted by a recent American Worldview Inventory report that you just came out with. And that's the reason why I wanted to talk to you about that. It really concerned me with the state of the biblical worldview. So in this report, it says we're in a battle for worldview supremacy. What does that mean?
Well, as you know, everybody has a worldview. The only issue in question is which worldview do you have? And in the United States, there's probably 8, 10, maybe as many as 12 different worldviews that people can choose from. The last 25 years or so that I've been doing research on worldview, one of the things I've discovered is that of the tens and tens of thousands of people I've interviewed related to worldview, not one of them has yet come out with a pure worldview, no matter what it is, whether it's Marxism or secular humanism or, Christian theism or biblical worldview, whatever it may be. What we tend to do in the United States, because we don't focus on worldview, we cut and paste. We hear things we like from one worldview, we bolt it on to our personal worldview. We hear something from a competing worldview, we bolt that on. And before you know it, we've got this amalgam of different, sometimes inherently contradictory worldviews that we're buying into. And so when we do our research at Arizona Christian University every year, we do this thing called the American Worldview Inventory, where we try to figure out what proportion of the adult population has a biblical worldview, meaning that they don't have a pure worldview either, but at least their worldview is dominated by biblical principles. And in doing so this past year, we found that only 6% of the adult population has a predominantly biblical worldview. That's the lowest I've seen since I started measuring these things back in about 1994, 95. And so, when I say that it's a battle for supremacy, all of these different worldviews want people to buy into their perspective on how to live life. And, Jesus would like us to buy his perspective, but there are other perspectives as well. And it appears that 94% of Americans right now have bought into those competing worldviews. And so, it really is a battle to see who's going to be the one that becomes the champion of how people think. And the reason it matters is because every decision you make is based on your worldview. So if we don't like the way that people are behaving, if we don't like the kind of country that we've got today, some of the attitudes and behaviors, the reason is because of the dominant worldviews. So it really does make a big difference.
Is there a trend then for a predominant worldview that's taking a hold?
Yeah, actually, that research is in the field right now. We're looking at 6 competing worldviews that we, based on our past research, would believe are probably the other ones who are vying for dominance in America. And so we'll know that answer about a month from now when the research has been completed. But it certainly seems like Marxism has been growing in its popularity in America over the last decade. We've got a lot of indications of that in our research. Secular humanism has been a very popular perspective. And I think maybe the most popular one that's going to emerge is postmodernism. There are others, modern mysticism and existentialism, nihilism, and so forth. But we're kind of eager to find out, what does the competition actually look like?
Right. So when we look at these worldviews and the ones that you're talking about, I think a lot of people are taken by surprise by this, aren't they? Let's just say biblical Christianity, the children that people have had are going into these other worldviews. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. As far as when a worldview is being formed in a person, could we talk about how early does a worldview start to take shape?
Yeah, I mean, this may be the thing that surprises people the most. What we discovered from our research a while back is that a person's worldview really begins to form somewhere around 15 to 18 months of age and is almost fully formed, fully functional by the age of 13. And if you think about it, it makes sense. The problem is we don't think about it, but it makes sense because that's the time in life where, as young people, we're trying to figure out, how does life actually work? Who am I? What's my role? How do I fit into the world? Who do I want to become? What's it going to take for me to get there? All of those kinds of questions are the ones that we're wrestling with from moment to moment, day after day. And that's what builds our worldview. What we're trying to figure out is how everything fits together. If life is a puzzle, we're trying to figure out what are the pieces and where do they go. And so we did find that between, let's say, around 12, 13, 14 years of age and probably around the mid-20s, people are still fiddling with their worldview. They're still trying to refine it, still trying to figure out what it looks like in practice. When they put it into play, they may not like the way that it works. So they'll go back and they'll re-examine aspects of their worldview. So it really isn't until maybe the mid to late 20s that a person's worldview is pretty much solidified for the rest of their adult life. But I would say that the key years are those years between the ages of 1 and 13. And so parents in particular need to be very attentive to that reality. What we tend to do in America is develop worldview by default. We just let the culture take the lead on that process. And what our research discovered is that most people's worldview is shaped by a number of different influences, but there are several in particular that dominate in that process. And those would be parents or family. But even more than that, the media has the greatest impact on the development of our worldview. Government, through the laws and policies that it puts into play, also give us a sense of what's supposed to be right and wrong. And so those tend to be the three dominant arenas: media, government, and family.
I didn't know that it was so early. I mean, I can understand it now that you bring it up, but I was always thinking that it didn't happen until maybe children went to junior high or high school where their worldview started to shape. But what you're saying is it's forming much, much earlier.
Yeah, and actually what we found in the research is that by junior high and high school, what they're really doing is trying to make their worldview something that works in every situation. That's that refinement process. And so if we wait until somebody is in junior high or high school or even college, it's too late. The saddest part of all, to me, we found in our research, is that churches are not among the dominant influences in the development of a child's worldview. And that's because we don't take children seriously as intellectual, emotional, and spiritual beings. And so what churches tend to do is wait till somebody's an adult. But by the time they're an adult, for the most part, that worldview is kind of like hardened cement. And so what we've then got to do is get a jackhammer and start blasting it out, getting rid of all that debris, and at the same time trying to replace it with something that the individual will recognize and feel comfortable with and embrace. And that's an exceedingly difficult process. And so with the senior pastors of churches we've worked with across the country, sadly, one of the things that we've discovered is that most of them think they're doing a great job, literally, and either excellent or very good job on a 5-point scale, in terms of helping people to develop their worldview, when nothing could be further from the case. The reality is they're failing miserably at this because they're focused on the wrong segment of the population and they're using the wrong approach. They think if they simply preach biblical sermons, or at least information-packed sermons, and people are taking notes, they're doing their job. And that's not really the case. What we need to be doing is helping people understand it's children where this comes into play. If we want the church in the future to be strong, we've got to be developing children today so that it will have Bible knowing, biblically thinking and understanding individuals for the future.